Hello, and welcome back to the Octopod episode 4. I am Dream, your host, and I am once again joined by my two co-hosts, Primrose EX, who is a longtime NA player who focuses on optimizing fights as much as he can, and Grape, a longtime JP player who can give us tons of insight into how things rolled out in JP, which characters ended up being long-lasting, how the meta shifted, and where the meta landed. The reason why I am doing their intros today is because if you listen to the last episode, this is a continuation of that same recording that I spliced into two different episodes to make it more digestible for you guys. So in this one, we're going to be covering pull strategy, and we're going through about 30 different units that are going to come to NA in the future, and we list them and explain where they should be in a pull priority according to our opinions. And so you can use our opinions to base what you want to pull for in the future so that you can better plan your Ruby budget. For a while now, the prevailing pull strategy that has been around the community, both in the Reddits and in the Discords and on YouTube, the pull to spark method and /or the Shizukats method, the content creator who made most of the NA content early on in the game's life cycle, and that was his personal strategy in playing the game, and so a lot of people that looked up to his guides and to the info he was spreading followed his same pull strategy. However, if you've been following the Reddit or some of the Discords, you've noticed that there is a new strat out called the Prim EX strat, whose namesake is not the character, but actually literally our co-host on this podcast. So I'm going to jump us straight into the recording where I ask Prim about it. I hope you enjoy. So Prim, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I would say, it's not like Shizukat's strategy, and the moniker describes or is popularized, isn't a good strategy. The reason why that strategy was popular in JP or is popular in JP is because JP has no foresight into the units that are getting into the future. So they, to some degree, in order to be careful, they want to save a stash and potentially skip units that look really good, just in case that unit might be, power crept in the future. Then, when a better unit comes, or when a really, really good unit comes of a different class or variety, they can, and they husbando or wifey this unit, they can pull all the way to pity and then pick up that previous unit they skipped, right? It's kind of an insurance policy for the future, against the future. However, in EN, we have all this foresight, right? We have, even up until this point, we have, over a year of foresight, and we're going to have that foresight going forward because JP is going to keep progressing a bit, at a 2/3 the rate of us, right? Until we catch up. So because of that, there's really no point in trying to do this Shizukat's, spark previous pull strategy where we
also,
always
just to be super clear, we're calling it the Shizukat strategy, but Shizu has never explicitly recommended this to other people. It's purely called that because he does it.
Yeah, they're copying him without understanding his own motives,
Yeah, we're talking about a player who literally did not pull any banner for the first year of the game.
Yeah.
Very different goals for most players.
Yeah, and instead of doing that, if your goal is instead, let's say, for example, to maximize the number of unique memory traveler characters and collab characters, etc., that you want, right, or that are meta, for example, then you would go for a different pull strategy. In fact, the better pull strategy, if this is your goal, is to always pull the characters that you want most when their featured banner occurs. And the reason for this, really, it comes down to the average number of pulls you would need to do in order to hit a featured unit on their banner is around 80 pulls, more or less around 83.
Yeah,
but going all the way, but 200 pity is very, very far away from this 83 pulls, right? So let's say, on average, let's say you hit exactly average, you hit it on pull 83, right? You would have to do another 120 pulls, right, to go all the way to 250 to spark a previous character that you skipped. Rather, let's say, for example, you just pull these characters on their featured banners. Well, on average, you're spending between 160 and 170 pulls instead. Obviously, there's significantly more variance associated with trying to hit a character without using the pity, but the 150 pity is always there as sort of a safety net for you on every featured banner. And if you think about it carefully, right, even in the strategy where you are using, when you're skipping a character that you really want, waiting for another character that you really want to spark this previous character, if you don't hit the featured character on that that second banner that you waited for, right? By pull 150, you still have to make the difficult decision of, should I go to pull 200, or should I just pity the current featured? But if you pity the current featured, you still don't have the original character. So the luck between these two banners is the exact same, right? Focusing on the second one or the first one, or if they were equal, let's say you go to 200 to spook the previous. Well, going to 200 means that you have a 9% chance overall going from pull 1 to pull 200 of missing. Going from 1 to 150, you have around a 16% chance of missing featured by pull 150, right? So you're really, really screwing yourself over there because in this case, where you go to pull 200, the worst case scenario, and you miss the featured character still, right? You end up getting one character for 200 pulls versus one character for 150, right? You see what I'm saying? Because you already went past 150. So at this point, what are you going to do? You're just stuck at an odd ruby amount. I mean, you're stuck at an odd fragment amount regardless. And this is not to mention, by skipping a character, you're just not able to use that character. You don't have that character in your roster for anywhere between 1 to maybe 2 or 3 months, right? Additionally, you're also skipping their period where they have bonus guide stones. And as we've seen, with a lot of these characters, they have very, very important nodes in the high 90s or level 100, where it's not even just SP enhancement, it's also just skill enhancement or potency enhancement.
Yeah, for example, Rinyuu's level 100 adds an extra 5% to her active damage up that she gives the party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you keep doing this strategy, what will end up happening is that every single time you spark a previous character, you're going to have to catch that character up using gold guide stones. So that's going to, impact you negatively as well. And at the end of the day, if we compare these two strategies, statistically speaking, over a long run of pulls, which we've actually simulated using a simulator that me and another a prominent community member on Shizukai's Discord have been working on. His name's MC. We've shown that pull on featured strategy will gain you approximately, anywhere between 50% to even 100% more unique featured characters over time, depending on, various conditions of assumed Ruby income, monthly or in between banners, as well as starting stash, right? But with anywhere between 50% to 100% increased standard deviation, or you can think of that as twice the risk. And when we talk about risk in statistics, we have to be very careful. I know the audience, some of you guys might not associate risk with something that's what risk actually is, what variance actually is not just wholly negative. It's also positive, right? It's both. So you can get very lucky or you can get very unlucky. But even when the variance is large, if you're talking about something that gives you, up to 100% more expected value, then that's going to more than account for any measure of this. Essentially, you're skipping out on too many MTs or too much value over the long run with the Spark previous strategy.
And just to add on to that, you're also losing the value of like a spook that you would expect. Past MT units aren't at a higher rate if you miss the featured one. So realistically, you're just shooting for that 200 pity. And if you're going to shoot for the pity in the first place, why not shoot for the pity that's just 50 less every time?
Yeah. Every time, your worst case insurance is always going to be at the 150 pity. Again, if you guys are going to walk away with anything out of this, just to try to make sense of this in your head, it's just that 200 pity for a prior unit is just too far away, right? It's too far away from, on average, how much it will take you to hit the featured character. This is why, skipping a character that you really want is never, well advised in terms of a pull strategy, especially for Yin.
What were you going to say, Grape?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you figured out where's the point where I would continue pull even after hitting. So like if I pull to 140 and I got Richard, would I go 150? So like what's the point? What's
right, absolutely. So practically speaking, there are two approaches to this. Based on our simulations, we found that there is very, very little difference between dipping and continuing, even when you hit the featured character at, let's say, between pulls 130 and 150. By continuing, I mean continuing to 200 to spark a previous one in terms of the number of total unique MTs you're going to have. And the reason why is a little subtle, right? The reason why is because the off-banner spook rates are so low, you're basically just reliant upon going to 200 to spark this previous character, right? And the downside of this is that there's almost no scenario where you would spook this character and thus stop before 200. You're always going to 200. Let's say from pull 130 onwards, right? Or pull 140 onwards, you're always doing the 60 or 70 pulls. Whereas in the case where you're pulling on a featured banner to begin with, when you hit this featured character early, like let's say on pull 10, 20, or 30, you can always stop, right? You're missing the value out of being able to dip early, always going to 200 part. But the upside is that you're reducing your variance a little bit, right? Because you're guaranteed to hit that previous character by now going to 200. So if you want to reduce your variance a little bit without really changing your expected value very much, then let's say for example you hit the current featured character on the featured banner between pulls 130 and 150. At this point, you can just go all the way to 200 and try to get a character that you skipped. And this is leading on to how we'll be describing, I guess, what we call like the Prim EX strategy, the strategy that I'm advocating players go for, where we sort out a list of units that we want, and then we categorize them into the tier 1. We want these units no matter what. We are planning our rubies for these units. And tier 2 being, if our pulls on these tier 1 units go really well for a while, we might, on an upcoming tier 2 banner, just go directly for this unit. Or whenever our luck does go poorly, eventually, it'll happen. It'll happen, 16% of the time, right? Where we have to
go past 150.
Right. Well, necessarily go like, let's say we're hitting like right around like pull 150, right? Or we're hitting like somewhat late. Well, in these scenarios, we can elect if we want to go all the way to 200 to spark a previous character. This is just purely based on preference. Again, like if you're pulling on a banner where said character has a very very powerful awakenings or really good A4, and eventually you might want to pick that up down the line, then there's no shame in just parking yourself at 150 and going for the dupe. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about it like this. If a character is not on your tip-top priority, your tier 1 priority to begin with, then really what's the shame in like just always, skipping these tier 2 characters unless they get spooked or something? Because at the end of the day, as a free-to-play player, you're always going to be, scrapping for rubies. You're never going to have like a mountain of rubies that you'll be like, oh, I don't care if I spend all my rubies and go down close to 0, because there's always going to be a unit that, past whatever horizon that you're planning for, that's going to be just as good, if not better, than all your best units that you have right now, that you would wish you had rubies for, but you don't. So instead of having that scenario come up, you can just focus on awakenings, on your the units that really want them, and just hope to spook your tier 2 characters. That's another way you can go for it.
Also on that logic, if you're already at, say you hit your tier 1 at 130, the 70 pulls it would take to get your tier 2 unit from the pity, lower pulls than the expected outcome if you had pulled on the tier 2 banner itself. Like it's better value than that, because you'd have to get to 83 to be coin flipping, getting the feature.
Right, yeah. What I'm saying is that based on the simulations, it ends up not being that different. And the reason why is because your spook chance is so low, there is no quote unquote chance for you to hit early and skip. You're missing all the value out of that. If let's say for example you were pulling on a featured banner, right? There is a chance that you're hitting on pulls between like 0 and 30 or 40 or 50 even, where you can dip, right? There is no dip, chance on the sparking strategy, right? There's no like dip early thing going on. That's essentially why they don't end up being that different. But going to the 200 when you hit on fairly late on the featured banner is going to reduce your variance on your overall results slightly, right? Because it's gonna guarantee that unit every time.
Yeah.
Once you hit it.
So what I was saying is that 70 pulls is like already a better value than if you had pulled on that tier 2 banner itself and then stopped after you got it at like 80, because you're guaranteeing it in less than 80. That's like at that higher threshold. So we talked about like where you would like how the math would go if you like got your featured unit at 130, and then obviously it's easy to stop if you're at like 50. But let's say you get it around odds at like 85. At that point, do you continue or do you dip?
Always dip. Always dip.
Okay, so around
I'm saying,
130 is where it becomes don't dip.
Well, no, I wouldn't say don't dip. Again, like at around 130 is where I would say you can continue if you want, right? It really depends on how much you value these tier 2 units, right? Because saving is always good, because there's always going to be a tier 1 unit down the line that you really want. You're never going to have infinite rubies, right?
True.
So both strategies work. You're not going to lose out or gain too much by going to 200 when you hit late. And by late, we do mean like, from 130 to 150, right? Whereas, when you hit like before then, even on pull 100, I would say just leave. The third option, so there are 3 options, right? One would be dip, right? The other would be go to 150 pity for a dupe. And the third one would be go to 200 for a previous. And I would say going to 150 for a dupe is not bad, right? Especially when you hit on like 140, or 130, whatever. If it's Bargello, right, for example, or if it's Elrica or whatever, you're gonna really enjoy that, 20% extra damage, or you're gonna really enjoy being a little bit closer to his A4 that you can trade for down the line. So, uh, there's no one size fits all. It's all based on what people want. But at least we want to give you guys like a general idea of a problem solving approach for based on your own preferences of how you want to plan for these banners. And we can actually take a look at that right now if we want to just go look at Tier Maker real quick.
Yeah. Prim is going to stream for us, and we've pre-selected as a group like a pool of the upcoming units and kind of Prim and Grape and mine's ideas on like which characters would be must gets, or at least why they could make a case for being your tier 1s, why some units that could be a case for tier 2s and stuff like that. So you have a general idea of how to put these. Because I feel like not only do most NA players not even know what the upcoming characters are, but they wouldn't know how to judge them just by looking at their character sheet on the index.
Oh, and one more thing that we didn't even mention. If you skip enough of these tier 2 characters, it's very likely that a combination of two of them will be on a rerun dual banner. And that's going to be really high value for you. So you can pull them all at the same time, and they're going to be 1% each. It's going to be super, super high value, right? Compared to pulling unfeatured. So instead of you waiting to spark them in the first place, if you just kept getting average luck or kept getting lucky and luck stacking, just don't even worry about it. All of a sudden down the line, oh man, I really want Levina, because I really like how she was portrayed in the story. I want to be that guy who was tied up in the rope or something. IRL. And then all of a sudden, she gets rerun. Let's say in EN, she gets rerun with, who's someone else good? Eltrix, right? In JP, they just had a rerun with Bargello. Anything could happen, right? And okay, I skipped both Levina and Eltrix. Let me pull on that banner, 1% on each. It's gonna be great. So saving is never gonna hurt you in the long run. Just trust the process, and we're gonna go over that process right now.
This is a list of characters which we've grouped together because they're either limited or good enough to be discussed and considered in your pooling plans. Hammy's there just because we like her, and I suppose to hype you all for the 9th arena after the disaster that is Largo. So I think
also it might be a little hard to see on my restream of this, but in the top left of each of their pictures is the banner type and then their name obviously below it. So you can see like there's some Sacred Blaze, some Memory Conqueror, Standard, that kind of stuff.
Oh, and by the way, shout out to Bolt. These are Bolt images and look great. And he actually made every single one of these images by himself. He made this cool little graphic, and shout out to him. Thank you so much.
Can you scroll up a bit just so we have our tiers?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's look like how we'll be grouping them. Tier 1 is basically, well, in our opinions, everyone wants them.
Making a case for wanting to pull this under every circumstance.
Yeah, you can basically deploy this character in 9 out of 10 situations. Sort of good. Yeah, so should we start?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start. So let's go. Do you want to go in alphabetical order, or do you want to go?
We can just go alphabetical since.
Yeah, just alphabetical.
Nothing will be left.
Okay, behind. Great. Okay, let's start with Araune EX.
Yeah, tier 1.
All right, and the reason why is because of one simple thing, right? She's able to grant a 1 BP regen channeling effect indefinitely, starting from turn 1.
The same way that we talked about Rinyuu. She just does it for BP, and then you can go to the back row with her the same way, right?
Yep. And as long as she does not perform a different action, her skill will be upkept indefinitely, unless, of course, she got like forced row swap and just got owned by something.
And then also you guys are saying that you actually need to build her SP pool since hers costs significantly more SP than Rinyuu's.
Yeah, and it's actually fairly simple. You just get a memory weapon. I mean, a fortune weapon. Yeah, a soul weapon that gets her SP pool all the way up to 1,000, and that way 10% of that is 100, and so you never run an SP.
Yep. She actually has a decent kit outside of that, but since you're basically losing value if you're not using the BP channel, it's basically not worth discussing.
Yeah, it's not worth discussing. However, if you wanted to have fun with a character that's still very good when used actively, I guess you could use her in like an ice comp or something for fun. But as we mentioned before, maybe Ice is not the strongest DPS, so you'd be mostly doing it because you want to, not because it's optimal.
Yep.
All right.
Onto her regular form, her MT form. Or actually, they're both MTs. Just
Yep.
one's an early MT and one's a late MT.
I'm putting it in hard skip.
Nope. And
so she has the potential to be our first MT release.
Yeah, and here's where we talk about how EX versions work, right? So in this game, some characters will have EX versions, and that includes Gem Pool units, OG8, COTC8.
You can see Fiore and Hannett in screen there.
Right. And the way it works is that you are only allowed to use either the EX version or the regular version in a fight, not both at the same time. And this really calls into question when you might actually want to be using Araune, because Araune is a light and fire mage, super duper spectacular. It's not like she's like the Elrica of fire or something, right? She's not so strong as to want to bring her over her EX version that you bring to almost every fight anyways.
Yeah,
that being said, there's going to be a big gap between them. Do you think that she'll have like a strong use between that time period?
She could have a decent use case, but it's not like she's not even stronger than Cyrus, for example, for fire. She's not really.
How does she compare to someone like Frederica, upcoming collab unit?
I think if the enemy is not immune to burning, Frederica is just straight up better than Araune, right?
Yep. Unless you need the regen for whatever reason.
Yeah. She can be good in Scholar Tower, but Scholar Tower is so easy. You really don't need her healing ability.
I'm just gonna say don't pull any unit for Scholar Tower, because that can literally that thing can literally be completed without any elemental damage. Yeah, which if you think about it, it's a Scholar Tower and you can do that. Yeah. It really explains a lot.
We don't want to spoof too much, but we don't want to we don't want to let you guys know too much about it, but at the end of the day, if the enemy sets are, they all have a book weakness, then you know what to do, right? So,
okay. And then on to Auguste.
Okay. Let's think about this.
Let's judge him as a unit, not as his banner.
Right. So we can talk about him as a unit. We've already done this, but this tier list, I think, is not about how powerful the unit is, but rather how much we should focus on pulling this unit, right? So
what if you think about it in like the rerun form?
Yeah.
Like, by the time, let's say it's a soul banner.
By the time he's rerun, it's a hard skip for non-whales and dolphins, and if you want his A4, then maybe he can be here, in my opinion. Because the A4 is one of the best and most unique. Because it guarantees a 100%.
It is 70 attack, 70 magic, 10% dagger tome, and at the start of battle, it fills your special gauge to 100.
Yeah, and this is really powerful because so in JP there's a way for you to fill up charge your BP without using a move, and that's by using BP with your pet. But using BP with a pet, correct me if I'm wrong, you can only use up to 3 BP, right, on any pet. Whereas some skills, some alts, they require 5 BP to charge, even at level 10, right? And a lot of them, the attacking ones require 4, right? So you're just unable to use those alts on turn 1 unless you have an A4 such as Auguste.
There's also the thing
I think
where
Big is a good slot for that then, right in between.
Yeah.
We'll just call it the Auguste tier.
Really? I mean, that's lazy. A4 only. Okay. I'm not sure if we've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but A4s aren't like a thing that you aim for. Like you don't aim for one A4. You either aim for 0 A4s or a lot of A4s.
Yeah.
Because
usually
not one A4 is going to enable extreme
Well, I mean, there's a big portion of silent whales that do watch our stuff. I've learned recently, so I feel like giving advice for both the free to play end and the spender end is still good.
I feel like I'm one of the only kind of people who are somewhere in between the all or nothing. Whereas I don't focus on getting every A4. I focus on like the most high impact A4s for sword and dagger comps, and that's just as meta optimized as possible in terms of spending. But
Yeah,
I
it
got
is
too many
still a
people who
lot.
want to do
So.
that. It's still a lot, yeah.
To
But
most people, that's on the a lot side, Mister. I
it's on
have
the lot side, but
50K
compared
rubies.
to like compared to like MC or UMB or whatever, it's still like a tenth of the spending. So it's
Yeah,
still a lot, but it's not like
Yeah.
a lot. Okay, so here,
And then of course, Bargello, we've talked about in every single podcast. He
yeah,
just changes the way you think about a comp when bringing it to a fight.
yeah,
Even if it's not dagger.
yep, big Kaka.
it is quite silly how much value he brings just by being there.
Yep. If he casts his active buff along with his passive, that's pretty much 50k extra damage per hit, not even per character.
Yeah, like assuming
Per
you can
break
already
turn.
hit the cap.
Yeah, assuming you can already hit the cap, which if it's a low cap or if you don't have much cap up on that weapon, then it's just straight up more damage, right?
Yep.
And as we've talked about, we're getting a lot of characters coming up soon that are just cap rammers on release.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, like if a character along with their cap raising on that weapon goes to 150k, or let's say it goes to 200k, him existing and raising the cap for them just brings that up to either 200k or 250k respectively, right? That's times 8 per turn, and then times 2, right? That's so much extra damage that you're getting almost for free, right? So that's something you can't really measure very easily, and also the 15% passive attack up as well, along with Richard. So that's going to just keep you capped without needing a character like Lynette. So you're able to use characters like Prim EX who can both go on regen duty in order to put a character like Rinyuu onto wear as well as being able to use her ult as well as her active skill to charge up your alt meters, right? And one thing that we didn't even mention this time with Bargello is that his ultimate is able to refresh all your characters' alt uses, assuming they already use it. It's not able to bank an extra use, but if they've already used their alt, it will refresh that for them. And this includes, characters that have level 9s. But if it's a character that has a level 10, they would have to use both of their uses before Bargello's can refresh and give them one use. Right, Grape?
Yeah, I'm going to say that because you can't bank an extra use, rather it just restores a use. More limiting than you would initially think concerning.
It's more limiting because like it's not like you're using all your alts at once and you're recharging them. They're more used throughout the course of a fight, but it can be very useful in a very very long fight. So I would say like maybe his alt having one or two uses or even using it at all is more niche in a well out, very optimized clear. But for a free to play clear that's like extremely long and you just want your alt uses again, it could prove to be very useful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Canary, a Sacred Blaze character.
Are we familiar with this one?
I am not familiar at all with Canary.
Right, I guess I'll read out her skill list. Her main gimmick lies in her passive, Angry Canary, which lets her attack up to 4 times every time you use any attack that includes a normal attack, which doesn't cost SP. But realistically, you're doing the 3 hit priority single target shield shave along with that for a 7 hit priority shield shave. So there are a few limitations to this passive, I suppose. First of all, you can't actually consume Canary fake stacks below 4. Like you don't want to reduce them below 4 because like the other effect of Canary fake is dodging attacks, right? So if you let her get hit and consume a Canary fake stat that way, you would potentially be lowering her stacks below 4 and then thus not letting her get the full shield breaking effects all the time.
Oh, right. Here's my question. How many Canary fake stacks can you stack up? Is it just
Oh, it goes
4?
up to 9.
9? Okay, yeah, that's great. That's really good.
So you can bank them up and then get hit by some stray AoEs or whatever, and then still be able to shield break with her. There's also her ult where you get 5 stacks just for using it, so that's pretty good.
Wait, are you so you're saying that this 3-star passive it's reliant upon how many Canary fake stacks she has, but it doesn't consume the fake stacks, right?
It doesn't consume it. So like if you never get hit, it's just
does. Oh, okay.
It's so
if
good.
you get hit, it always if you never get hit, it just always sticks, and then you can shield shave 7 times every turn. That's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah. So a character like her, she would be very, very good in a fight that has a lot of shields, right? And also in fights where like you might need to the enemy might like lock weaknesses, or they might shift weaknesses in an awkward way. She's always there, able to crack 7 shields regardless.
Yeah, I'm gonna say her damage is absolutely depressing.
Right. She's not there for damage.
Yeah, like just look at her base physical attack and you'll understand quite quickly.
Yep.
I think someone has explained how the damage formula works, hopefully. Don't expect her to do that much damage, even if you're using her nuke, and then even if you count the Canary fake attacks, which is like 4 times 40 power, which is 160, right? Even like all that considered, it's just not great.
Yeah, because she also doesn't come with any passives giving her dagger up or giving her attack up.
Yeah,
so she gets all of that from other people.
Yeah, but do remember, do think about this, right? A lot of other characters, in order to max out their shield shaving, they have to consume a resource. For her, she's not consuming Canary fakes. She doesn't need to consume BP. She doesn't need to switch rows like Sonia does. She just, as long as she has her fake stacks, she can use 0 BP, priority shave 7 shields. And not only that, that means that with her excess BP, she can just spend, a turn every here and there to gain back Canary fake stacks as they deplete if the enemy starts targeting her.
Yep. I think something you'd have to keep in mind is, I think even for all shield shave characters in general, I think they are better the less expansive of a roster you have, because if you have all the characters, it's more likely that you can fit in a character that actually hits the enemy's like actual real weaknesses.
Yeah,
and then it might be a toss-up between a 5-hit actual weakness versus Canary's 7-hit shield shave.
Yep, and actually the funny thing is, she is a very, very powerful character for certain fights. However, in a dagger comp versus a dagger weak enemy, you probably wouldn't even bring her, because dagger, thieves are very, very good at shield shaving anyways, and all the other thieves, they are able to bring support and DPS and bring dagger res down. Besides Therian, who's also the DPS, and she can't dagger res down, so you just wouldn't even bring her. But that doesn't mean that she's not good. She's just a character that you would use outside of thief DPS comps. You don't think of her as a DPS character. You think of her as a very specific kind of support unit that you might want to bring. So let's go on. Cecily, unfortunate.
Skip.
We're just gonna.
I think that people were really hyped for her at the beginning of this year in EN, expecting her to come around then. And then she just never came. And then Nier came out, and it's like all of the fights where she would have been really good are already done. And so she's not, like we said, none of her utility is really the way that we're going to look at the game going forward. We're not just trying to break, like we're not trying to hit tome, basically. We're not trying to. There's more efficient ways to break characters with the individual classes that you would bring to a fight. A Sonia, a Therian are going to do more shield cracks in one turn's use than she is.
Elrica, I'll say this, right? I think for now she's one of the best characters in the game. That's because she's the best single target DPS for Sword, who's the #1 DPS damage class. However, I will say that we have so many strong sword DPS characters, and we'll have so many more coming in JP, yet unreleased, but about to be released. For example, Therion EX, Sacred Banner sword character that is yet to be released, Hikari, that we can't possibly put every single really, really OP sword DPS character into tier 1. It's just not a feasible thing to do for a free-to-play player. So, in my opinion, right, I guess a lot of people would disagree with me. I would drop her down to tier 2 and put someone like Odio-O into tier 1. What do you think about this grade?
I think, because first of all, this is a pool priority banner, and then Araune EX and Elrica shares the same pity pool. So
Yeah, that's true.
I
So
think it's quite easy
yeah.
to just slap her in tier 1 immediately
Yeah.
because of that.
I think
And
you're
then
right.
secondly,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of utility. Like personally, I'm quite impressed with like her one skill slot just being able to do 15% attacks down and defenses down.
Mhm.
And then in a world where you bring Araune EX and Rinyuu to like 9 out of 10 fights, and then you really don't have enough traveler slots in the team, I think her being able to cap those parameter downs is quite important to me. So I think
Mhm.
she is a hard tier 1 for me. Maybe something will change in the future, but like just looking at the JP environment right now, she is a solid tier 1.
Yeah, I feel like just in terms of how strong she is right now, she's undoubtedly tier 1. I just fear that we just have too many sword units. Then we'll know what to do with even in JP in just a couple of months, right? We're gonna get probably 3 more super busted sword characters, and I'm not really sure who they're swapping in for. That's
Yeah,
my
of
quote.
course.
And the other thing is that like Araune EX and Elrica, they were on the same pity exchange in JP, but there's no guarantee we're gonna have the same structure in the end. We have
Yeah,
no idea what
but
we're gonna have in the end. So like
we
let's say
are
they just came,
basing
yeah. If somehow they came in,
estimates.
yeah. If they somehow came on separate banners, I personally am not sure, because our decision is gonna change in real time. Once JP is getting these units, JP is gonna get their new sword units before we even get to pull on Elrica, right?
Yeah,
So we'll see what happens.
yeah.
Um,
I think we can just base our judgments on like JP for now, and
yeah,
then
like yep,
if something happens, we can always revisit it, right?
yeah. I do think that what I guess we can talk about Odio once we get to him.
Yeah.
And put him back here.
Wait for your turn.
Yeah, true.
Eltrix.
All right, Eltrix. Well, here's how we'll describe Eltrix, right? She has very, very good passives, and she's also um, the best traditional tank in the game, right? She has an HP barrier that gives her up to 75% of her max HP. Um, with her own accessory, it'd be 100%, but 75%. With her A3, and then 2 A4 stacked on top of that, you can get her up to 8,000 HP naturally. So you'd have, so, something like 14k HP or more, with pets, with A4s, with your weapon crafted for HP. It's
Yeah, her passive is so high value.
Her passive is extremely high value. So we can look very briefly at her passive. Going to look at this real quick, and we see that while in front row at full HP, which she would be as long as her HP barrier kept her there, she gives all front row allies 15% attack and magic up, as well as 20% SP consumption reduction. And the way that she gains her HP barrier is when using a 3VP on a skill. So that's very easy to do. Oh, my question is, how does the HP barrier work in terms of stacking? So let's say you use 3VP when you already have an HP barrier. What happens there?
It doesn't stack, so
It just
it
resets
just
to
goes up
75.
to a maximum of 75%.
Okay, cool. And what if you're under full HP? Would it just give you a 75% of your max HP as the barrier and leave your normal HP alone until it gets regened?
Yeah, it leaves your normal HP alone.
Okay.
So you can't self top up HP like that. That's what you're asking.
Yep. And it works exactly like a barrier. It doesn't interact with your regular HP.
Yeah, think of
Yep.
it as a second HP bar. That's it.
Yeah. It's your priority HP bar essentially. It
Yep.
you only get hit on your regular HP if all of this HP depletes from your HP.
Yeah.
All of that being said, though, is there really that many fights where you opt to bring her over like Fiore EX or just not having a tank?
Yes, actually.
Yeah. I was just going to make a very short statement. EX Fiore is really good when you absolutely need her, and you will know when you absolutely need her once you understand her kit, which we'll talk about. However, when she is not needed for your tank, she is not going to be as action economy efficient because EX Fiore needs to keep using her skill in order to block for you, whereas a traditional tank, they can do other stuff after the enemy is already provoked onto them.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
How often are just tanks in general used going forward? Is it like a pretty regular thing?
For me, basically every fight.
Oh,
That's high difficulty content.
okay.
Maybe sometimes you can get away without one, but like for ease of management's sake, it's often easier to just put a tank on there instead of trying to survive stray AoEs and random targets absolutely butchering you. You know, Gertrude things, 3x so-called random target landing on your Cyrus's face.
Yeah, and it's also a playstyle thing. I remember talking to Frog about this too. I think all three of us were in the combo, and Frog says he doesn't tank it very much. He just dodges. So he provokes onto Hana EX, and she dodges all the random target and single target. Everyone else has some level of stacks of physical or elemental dodges based on pets or accessories, and then he just tries to break and kill stuff.
Well, that's not really I mean, that's still using a traditional tank because Hana EX is a traditional tank.
Right. You think of her as, well, she's sort of a traditional tank, but she's more of a dodge tank, right? She tanks in the sense that you want to provoke enemies onto her, but the way that she tanks is by dodging instead of taking the hits, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of traditional tank as in a taunt tanker where you don't have to do the tank action every turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in that sense, they're equally efficient. It's just I think the reason why Hana EX is so in vogue, so popular right now, is because of the efficiency of her debuff actions, right?
Yeah.
So it's just action economy, right? And hopefully they're able to do something outside of just tanking your hits, which Eltrix is able to do, right? Because just by existing, she is giving this 1-star passive to your whole front row, which is really nice, right? And she's also able to do quite a lot of damage. And in fights where you need to tank, and the fight also has a dark weakness, you can even bring her there. So she's actually doing active damage with sword and dark in those fights.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's enough about Eltrix for now.
Yeah.
We went really deep into that. Okay. All right. Fiore.
Oh, yeah.
Bam.
Yeah, I'm gonna put her there.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah, so basically we talked a lot about how tanking and then 18,000 HP, none of that matters because she takes 0 damage exact. So she has, for those of you who have Outbreak, you know how his cover effect moves before an enemy recovering from break. Fiore does the exact same thing, except in that same move, she has to spend 0 BP. She takes 0 damage from either physical or elemental attacks, whichever you choose. There are 2 separate moves. And then she counters every move that is with a single fan hit that inflicts burning, which is an effect that reduces the enemy shield by 1 every turn at the end of the turn, but not reducing it to 0, so you don't accidentally break.
That's
so
good.
Yeah, you as long as the enemy is hitting either random target or single target, and all the enemy does is either physical or magical in a single turn, Fiore EX will always take 0 damage and reflect each action with a single fan hit that applies that status. So yeah, it's pretty broken.
She's specifically good for fights where you really can't afford to run a traditional tank, either because the enemy is unprovocable or maybe just because they're way too strong somehow, right? and you don't have you want to muster out the action economy to somehow be able to mitigate all of that using traditional tanking.
Yeah, like for dodge tanks, for example, sidestep stacks. If the enemy has massive multi hits, like I don't know, like the Spear Dark Weak level 100 NPC, it's gonna go through all your sidestep stacks real quick. But Fiore doesn't care how many hits the enemy does. She
as long
just
as they're all the same type.
takes all of them. Yeah.
And can you describe how? So we described already, EX Fiore tanking. We mentioned briefly how it's similar to Ulbrich's, except he actually takes damage. What does Hammy give us, right? In addition to all this, because what we've been told, or the casual player has been told, is that Hammy can make whoever is in front of her a tank. Is this really true, or what are the limitations of using Hammy versus these two strategies that we've already mentioned?
Well, for Hammy, basically, if the enemy is not immune to taunt, you can practically make anyone a tank. That is true. She has skills that gives her role partner taunt for boostable turns. I think 5. I'm not sure, but not that important. It's a reasonable amount, and also gives the role partner dodge stacks. So either physical or elemental,
Yep.
whichever you choose.
Yeah,
So obviously that would
it's extensible, I think, right? Both the taunt and the number of dodges is based on the number of BP you use.
So it just allows that ally to not get hit, effectively function as a dodge tank.
There are so many ways, right? We've already mentioned, using Eltrix, other traditional tanks.
Just
EX
real quick,
Fiore.
Prim, can you get closer to your microphone? You're getting further and further away as you as we descend.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me just repeat myself. I was just reclining in my chair like that. So we've already talked about a couple ways that we can tank, including the ones that we already have in EN. Traditional tanking using a character like Gilderoy or Devon, right? Those are our early exposure to tanking. We also have access to Ulbrich with his defense skill. Now we briefly mentioned EX Fiore. We mentioned Hammy. Also briefly mentioned Hana EX, right? These are all different ways of tanking, but relating back to our original topic of why we placed EX Fiore so high is that both her and Ulbrich's tanking is not reliant on whether the enemy is provocable or not. And as we'll see in the future, there will be plenty of fights where the enemy is unprovocable, right? Or at least the boss is unprovocable and their ads are, in which case you might need someone like EX Fiore. In addition, if the enemy has a lot of multi-hits, right, or multiple action phases with multi-hits, then you would run out of dodge stacks very soon if you didn't use someone like EX Fiore, where she is literally invincible and literally does not care if the enemy does, 4 actions in one turn or 12 hits in one turn, right? She just does not care.
Yeah.
So
there is also the fact that because she acts before an enemy recovering from break, you can, on the break turn, use someone that does DPS without a care, because you'd still be able to come back in front in time to cover for your allies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that actually grants her, that's like a bonus point in her favor in terms of action economy, because in a traditional tanking setup, you do need to sacrifice the second turn of your break on that row with your traditional tank to move that tank forward if that tank is not also a DPS.
Frederica.
Okay.
My beloved.
This is.
I have and I will commit war crimes in your honor.
I really don't want to pull for her, but at the same time, I sort of do. The reason why is because I don't want her. She's in a collab with Roland, and Roland has Buraz down. So I don't know what the heck is going on here, but I guess we can put her in a hard skip if that's the conclusion that Grape has, because that means if we hit Roland first, we can just dip, right? If Roland were also not a hard skip, which we can debate.
You don't skip collab waifus.
True. All right.
No, you can put her in hard skip. I'm just saying that the real ones out there.
Really a fan of Frederica, despite having her.
Onto my self insert in this game. Haunted EX.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, also, other reason why we're putting here is because we just have so many really, really strong fire DPS. She's not going to be unique in that way. So, all right, let's see here. And this is I feel like if we were gonna be differentiating, we would have to put her here, right?
Yeah, I think high tier 2.
Yeah, high tier 2. Oh, maybe we should actually sort it within tiers.
Order them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should
Okay.
order them. Yeah, we should. Okay. In that case, I don't really know about this top. I think they're
I
also
think
good.
tier
It
1.
doesn't
I
matter.
think tier 1 you don't really need to because
There's no point in ordering tier 1. They're so good. It's just hard to even say anything. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Okay. Hana EX, I think we already talked about her kit as well, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
on to the next.
Hey, this is Dream from the future. I'm just now realizing that I cut that part out where we talked about Haunted EX's kit a little bit more in depth because it was in the middle of another character's thing to make it flow better. But basically, she is the debuff Lynette. She has a way to self-cap a bunch of debuffs onto an enemy, as well as coming with an ulti that inflicts attack, defense, magic defense down, the same way that Lynette's ulti gives us those specialty buffs. So she can help cap ulti defense downs and extend them, along with putting the defense downs while being a dodge tank. So she's kind of like a evil Lynette plus being a tank.
See you later.
Ouch.
Yeah, we've already talked about.
Yeah, we
Hermie,
have already talked about
We already
her.
have a gajillion bow. Bow isn't the hardest hitting thing against most things we're gonna fight upcoming. You're always gonna take
sorry,
dagger
Elias.
or sword or a spear.
Krauser, I feel like
Uh,
he's probably here, right?
yeah, he does absolutely nothing outside of spear, but he does spear very well.
Yeah, he really does. In shorter fights, he actually probably does more damage in spear than Leon, even though Leon brings more support, I guess.
Yeah, like I think it's one of those units that are quite valuable to whales because
Yep.
you have all the tools to make basically everything a shorter fight in closer standards.
Yep. And even then, Krauser can do his thing like for two break cycles at least. Like he has two
Yeah.
uses of his limited, so it's not like it's just one. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and like the hyper damage output he puts out like during those break cycles is I think quite like it's enough to justify him.
Yeah,
as a unit.
It is what's going to make your fight shorter in the first place.
Also, just to be clear, you guys talked about it for just a little bit. What's like just a quick explanation of his gimmick?
Yeah. So basically, it allows him to nuke extremely hard for like 2 turns, because like these buffs are 3 turns, but realistically, you'd be casting the power enhancement buff first, and then the multi attack enhancement buff, and then over
do note,
the 2 break turns.
These are great skills in and of themselves. They shield a lot of shield, so it's not like he's like just having empty turns just to give himself these power enhancements. They're actually useful turns anyways.
Okay, and then power enhancement adds 1.5 times to his damage, and then multi-hit adds an additional hit to each of his skills.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's basically nuke very, very hard, but then doesn't do much afterwards. Instead, unless you're out, and then you can rinse and repeat.
All right, on to our beloved spear. Wait, did you already put him on there? Leon.
Yeah,
Leon.
Oh, my bad.
I think we should explain this.
Okay. All right, let's go back.
So Leon kind of has a similar gimmick in the extra attack sense of it.
Yep. So you have his bread and butter, which is just a 5x spear single target. Max boost would be 100 power per hit. So that's basically Xanta, but single target. It gives him the extra attack stack, which you can consume by using one of his nukes. Well, you can see.
Yeah, basically anything besides that move.
Yeah, the thing about Leon that makes him easier to use than Krauser is that it's actually a consumption thing rather than a turn thing. So it doesn't expire even if you like decide not to use the nuke. It only expires when you can control it, basically. It's what I'm saying.
Wait, how many can you stack this up to?
No, you can't stack this, but like you can choose when to consume it.
So it's just a stack of 1, but you can whenever you. Okay, makes sense.
Also, his attack stat is fucking up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of theirs. I mean, look at this. They're both 44.
They're both 44. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Another cool thing is that while in front row allies have 20% elemental damage resistance up. Do keep in mind this is elemental damage resistance up. This is like
it's the flat 20 that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's literally flat 20, and it's not interacting with your stat up or stat down stack, right? This is just like its own separate stack. So it's the same stack as your elemental resistances, like lightning resistance, fire resistance up 10%, whatever, 20%.
Yeah, your skill board resistance.
So this is actually very, very powerful, right?
Yeah.
In the right fights, it's extremely powerful for letting you survive.
Yeah, and then the AOE parameters down. The defense or attack down. It's quite handy to have.
The spear and staff res down. So you can use a combination of him along with Yanlong for staff fights. And also his ultimate is extremely powerful because it allows you to not run a character like Araune EX sometimes, because if you have his all level 10 for 2 whole break cycles, you can just use this, right? And everyone's going to be able to 3 BP nuke both turns if you plan it off that way. And that's why we put him in tier 2. Maybe we should put him a little higher here because he really carries spear. And there are some fights where you can't bring sword, you can't bring dagger. And in those fights, you're going to really want Leon, right? Okay, Levina.
I think maybe.
That's how I feel. I mean, we can just summarize as she along with Sofia EX are the 2 best win mages, right?
Yeah, she has a 1000 potency nuke. Yeah, 1000. It costs 300 SP to cast, but I mean,
it doesn't even have it doesn't have a double hit either. So it's just like,
Yeah, it's gonna ram cap, but like if you use it like when the enemy is not broken, it's still gonna ram cap. So it's actually pretty good in that sense, because like if you're not focused on shield chafing, you just wanna cut down some HP. It's pretty good.
That's something like, that's the advantage of a character like Levina and Edelgard. Their nukes being so powerful that they can ram cap even without being in break allows you to go for like those cute short speed runs of kind of outdated in-game content, right? You just nuke them out of break.
Zero break.
Yeah, zero break strats, yeah. That's definitely a big luxury kind of thing. But I mean, obviously, she's still a very great unit. Win comps are a thing, and she is optimal in every single win comp along with Sofia EX. So that's why we put her here. Let's see, Lumis. See you later. Not that she's not a good unit. I think she's a pretty good gem pool unit if she were gem pool, but she's not. So she is not a great unit.
The main kicker with Millard EX.
Yeah, the main
is kicker, also not.
Yeah, the main kicker is that she's paired with Millard EX, right? If she was paired with like Fiore EX instead of Sofia EX, we'd be like, yeah, she's not a bad unit. I'm glad that I have her, but being paired with Millard EX is just like a big L. You're just sorry.
Yeah, and I don't even think she's that great of a unit because, like, at best she's a breaker, and her DPS is abysmal. Honestly,
I think it can be okay. It's not for bow standards, it's not bad because it's just so many hits, right? At a decent potency that even scaling off of a not very high attack, like among bow users, it's not bad. Also, because of her passive, it's going to be a lot easier for her to crit, right? Because of her 3-star passive. Not that her, it is what it is, but it definitely accounts for her crit stat being a lot lower because obviously your crit stat matters a little bit, but relative to like a higher crit stat, let's say you had 400 crit stat, but without this passive, she still actually crits more often than if you didn't have a passive crit up.
Right. I
Just
think that's
just
enough
'cause.
time for a hard skip unit.
Yep. Yeah. Anyways, she's okay. TLDR. Nephti. Just what? What am I?
Yeah.
There are
Sorry.
too many waifus in hard skip. I am upset. They need to fix the design, make the husbandos weaker.
Damn.
Yeah.
We do be doing some sexism here in this pod.
Nephti is not that great. She has a lot of setup for okay rewards.
Yeah,
And
she's just not very turn efficient, right? She has to keep spamming
yeah.
in order to do what she does best.
Yeah.
We can summarize her kit really quickly just by looking at it.
So one of the specials that you can use up to 10 times, which is funny.
It is funny.
It's basically a Lynette special, but weaker. Until you stack it up, and then it's still weaker. But you
But it's
you
forever.
you can but you can spam it. So okay, fair enough.
Yeah, imagine just spinning it, just spamming it over and over again. How
But
action
really,
economy
you just
efficient is
want
that?
it for the support points, which buff her own skills. You can see it's like, nothing too exciting, right? Because for each support point, repeat this attack once. So,
Yeah, and
like
the reason why she
3-star
gets to
skill.
spam it, by the way, is her 1-star passive, right? End of each turn, special gaze fills up by 50%.
Yeah, so you're not getting wrecked by not enough BP.
Yep.
But even then, think about it. You just have to cast her out like so many times. Like that's gonna be by the time you stack it up to like maximum potency, you probably be better off putting in another unit, and the fight's probably gonna be over before she stacks the out. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nephti's standing there like, I'm at full power, and the enemy was dead 5 turns ago.
Yeah, not to upset
Yeah.
Grape. I mean, not to upset Frog too much, right? But we're gonna have to put his favorite unit here.
Right, the
Odio.
Odies.
Yeah, tier 1.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, very quick summary.
Yeah, quick summary
Just
of his gimmick, more so than
yeah. Look at the buff.
Yeah. Right here.
20% all
5.
damage up, guaranteed crit, extendable
And then
on boost.
Plus 1
Yep.
BP.
Oh,
plus
plus
1
1 BP.
BP.
Yeah.
And and also, I'm sure a lot of people would think, oh my gosh, full front row take 50% HP damage. Well, the thing is, this take damage can never kill you. And if he is the slowest unit on your team, Legion will kick in after he moves anyways. So this is never going to do anything to hurt you. You just never going to care about this effect.
If you don't take speed nodes, you probably it doesn't matter.
You just have to be slower than the boss. It's not going to be too bad because I think most enemies eventually end up being faster than whatever he will be without speed nodes, even at A1, right? Because he'll be 340 speed flat, right? Without any speed nodes.
I'm not sure. Not to
Anyways,
deep dive.
Yep. And then no deep dive, but this 6-hit sword AoE and this is actually a 9-hit because if boost max, all allies with more than 60% HP are going to take that HP damage, including himself, and repeat this attack once. So repeat up to 8 times plus 1.
And that puts him into his third passive threshold.
Yeah.
Which
Like
he doesn't need this guaranteed. He doesn't need this guaranteed crit because he's already going to buff himself to have guaranteed crit anyways.
Yeah.
Yep. So quite the easy unit to use, despite so-called drawbacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to talk about how ridiculous 20% all damage up is, right? Because this makes it so that you can actually use him outside of sword comps. The guaranteed crit is just a flat 1.25 times damage multiplier because it doesn't interact with anything else.
Yeah,
1.25. It doesn't interact with any of their stack. So it's just so much damage. It's hilarious.
Odio-S.
Also, it is the based ending. Odio-O.
Yeah. Odio-S is the character that goes along with Odio-O that you might end up hitting as you're pulling for Odio-O. Anyways.
I'm
not really sure.
I think it's big maybe at best.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like he's a little bit overrated by game mates and also just a lot of tier lists in general.
I mean,
He's
game
a
mate is game mate.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason why is really just because he's someone who focuses on dark, and it's not like at that point in time we're lacking in dark. In fact, we even have Sword Pierce Dark.
Yep.
So, I mean,
He has the same thing as Levina, except dark pierces fire.
yeah, and again, that it's a non-repeating attack, so it's just an
1000
attack.
potency, one hit.
Not
He
too
also
exciting.
has like revives, but honestly, in this game, you really don't want to have to use revives. It's
Yeah,
like if you revive, you already lost all your buffs, and then at that
yeah,
point, it's just like many turns of trying to
yeah.
patch those characters up.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
this
not
game it's like a snowball effect, right? Like when you're doing all your moves well in an optimized run, you're snowballing and the enemy is just
rolled.
getting rolled, right? And being in a much worse spot, right? But as soon as your characters start dying, that same thing's going to happen to you. The enemy's going to start snowballing against you, and you're going to get rolled. So that's why revives are just very overrated. Ooh,
It's you.
Henry.
Yeah, T1.
What is there to say? Really, she's just goated.
Well, party-wide regen, although not permanent like Rinyuu is, but basically you have to cast it every how many turns was it? 2, 3, 4, 5. Every 5 turns if you don't have an extender, which most people don't, I guess.
Oh, everyone should
Yeah, and
have EX
then
Prim's A4. Come on.
I mean, it's quite expensive. But yeah, and then for like special wise, she has the net special basically, but with regen on top of it, and then also recovering 50% of your ultimate gauge, which I think most of the time doesn't really matter, except if you're going for some really specific setup where you
Yeah,
cast ultimate twice in a turn. I think
it's a really
Primix
powerful
is
setup now.
yeah.
I feel
I
like it
think you're
is
very
actually a
familiar with it.
yeah. Yeah, it's a you can call it a gimmick, but I think it's at this point it is like a verified like really powerful strat, I think. Um
Yeah, that. I mean, if you rate Prim EX as a unit herself, she doesn't. You can't really do much with that 50% gauge without Solon, right? Solon U10 even.
I think it depends. So, by the time that she gets this, which is she can get it as soon as turn 2 or even turn 1 if you use, like a pet to charge her BP or something like that, right? This you can speedrun with this, right? Because a turn 1 alt, you gain 50% special gauge. And then with some BSB usage, you would be able to get your alts up with a lot of characters by turn 2.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
So, I mean,
okay,
and you can
like
also, with alt level 10, you can also do this to speed up your alt for, the second cycle or whatever, whenever you plan on, doing some sort of quick, alt maneuvering.
She's also
yeah,
very fast.
She's
yeah,
extremely
she
fast, which
has
is good.
same speed as Primrose Dancer. So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In this game, the rough priority of speeds you want is generally you want your buffers to be the fastest, and then your debuffers to be second fastest. Only because a lot of the time your debuff actions are also tied to hitting the enemy. Getting the buff onto these units as you're hitting and debuffing the enemies at the same time is a good thing. And EX Perm is very easy for her to outspeed pretty much all your units, um, with or without help. Sometimes with a little bit of help, she'll be able to do it very easily anyways. Also, she has
so
AoE defense and magic defense down just like her regular version, right? So she compresses a lot of different, very powerful utility because her buff also removes status ailments, right? At boost
yep,
max, it also clears all stat down debuffs. So this is actually useful for a lot of hard fights, um, especially because in a lot of these hard fights, the enemy starts casting different status effects on you with their moves starting from turn 1, right? And these are all moves that you're very likely to use, starting from the beginning of the fight.
all in all, brainless regener for the whole party, and then massive utility. So basically, just pull on the spanner.
Yeah, she's one of the few gem pool units we will. In fact, she might be the only one where we would suggest pretty much everyone pull for her, because in the meta where you're gonna have characters like Bargello and Richard or whatever, Primrose EX is basically just strict upside versus a character like Lynette, who
All
she's
right,
basically power tripping out.
for the whales out there, her A4 is also excellent. Well, actually,
Yeah.
basically every step of her awakenings are great, including her ultimate. So,
Yep.
yeah, there you go. If since this is a pool priority tier list, if you have a whale, just go ham on this banner. I don't think.
Yeah,
It's
especially
bad
in
decision.
EN. Yeah, especially in EN when we're very likely to have the 3,000 5-star. I mean, that's sorry, 100 first pity, right?
Yeah, the 4.5.
Yeah, the 4.5. For her, I think it'd be just full 5-star, kind of like the OG8 characters to begin with, right? It'd probably just be 100 frags for a full 5-star.
We'll see. I mean, bottom line is
Let him cope. Let him cope.
No,
Yeah.
I'm serious. Just think about it. That's just the logic that we've had, right? All the OG8 characters have had this kind of thing ever since. Therion was the first case, and then we had it for Cyrus, and
They're
since
also
then,
all paid
it's been
step
the
ups.
same thing. Yeah, so this is likely also the same thing. We're not going to get a free step up.
Yeah.
Okay, Richardo.
Yeah.
Richard. Yeah, T1.
We already talked about that extensively, so we're just gonna move on. Same thing with Rinyuu.
Yep. Same thing, yeah.
Roland. I feel like it's got to be.
I think it's a maybe for me.
Yeah.
Maybe higher and then maybe.
Well, here's the thing, right? I feel like if we get another really good spear unit, which we probably will at some point, it's not like it's never going to happen, then he might just, go here. Because if that spear unit has spear res down, that's great. But if they don't, we still have Signa that you can use. You can run in that comp along with Leon to cap your active spear res down. And that's the main claim to fame for Richard. I mean, not Richard. Sorry, Roland. However, there's another aspect of his kit that's really good. It's that his ult also has spear res down.
Yeah.
His kit is a little bit tricky to use because he's a unit that is a nuker, but his gimmick is that he has to roast hop in, just like Sonia does.
Yeah, I don't really like that part. He does have a move where he goes back to the back row, but then that move's potency is pretty depressing, so you probably won't be using it.
Honestly, if his kit was more like Sarisa's, where like all of his good moves moved him back to the back line as soon as he used them, he'd be so much better.
Yeah.
Well, they had to keep his triangle strategy gimmick of being up front to get one shot in every fucking battle.
Where my quietus is. Oh my god.
Hater's gonna hate, but he's practically top 2 speedrun unit in the game. He's really good for speedrunners.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Rondo.
I feel like he's probably at best here, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's.
Does he come out earlier? No, not really.
Because I feel like there's zero chance like he's not getting power crept out of sword rosters. It's like in like literally 2 months he's gonna be here in JP, because there's no chance that like the 3 or 4 sword characters coming up are not gonna like sword pierce light AOE him out of like, because here's the thing, right? His sword pierce light AOE is tremendously good, but in every single fight where you care about AOE, you also end up transitioning to single target. And he's taking up a slot there every single time where he's unable to do shit single target compared to the actual good sword DPSs at single target. And the ads in terms of most of the fights have an HP pool that's significantly less than the bosses usually, right? So like you don't even need to use both Rondo and Sazantos most of the time. You could probably like just do AOEs with Sazantos, do some single target hits and just kill the ads and just focus on single target, and you wouldn't have to waste a slot bringing in Rondo. We can't do shit for single target damage. So I don't. That's my opinion. I'm not sure if you agree.
I think like he's like for now he still has a place in light fights.
Yeah, he's still
And-
among your best light DPS.
And then if it's like a ST sword fight,
he's never going on there.
you're actually bringing Lars instead of Rondo.
Yeah.
Because out damage pretty good. It's not even that he's bad. It's just warriors are too crowded a class.
I feel like just warriors are too crowded. It's hard to justify pulling on every single warrior out there. It's just too much. He's like between these two for me.
I think the way to decide it is if you got Rondo on his release, would you bring him to every sword fight for like at least like 6-9 months?
No.
6-9 months, probably not.
Okay, then big maybe. I would say.
Yeah.
If he lasted half a year, then I'd say tier 2. But
I mean, you bring him in every single sword pierce light fight.
Well,
okay.
That's just every single light fight, really.
Bit of an L. Because honestly, yeah, Sazantos light OE is so good. He can just carry that by himself. Like, I mean, sword pierce light OE is so good. Sarisa, I would say, because she's gem pool, even though she's really, really good, I would say like here or here, right? Like, you can't really justify.
Do you need her
I don't
to
think
cap
it's a hard
the dagger
skip.
down?
Huh?
You don't need her to cap dagger down because Sonia, Auguste.
You don't need her for passive attack up because it's only her row partner. Yeah, you have Bargello, and it's just that she's really good in particular instances where she can give you that res down. She can shield crack. She can give those buffs to her row partner, and you're not necessarily going to bring both Bargello and Richard. I think
she's definitely not a hard skip though.
Yeah, I think she's.
It's like even though she's a gen pool, like realistically sparking any gen pool character isn't easy.
Yeah.
You can't cap sword rest down.
Yeah, without her, it's really hard.
Without her until Signa, and then Signa is very, very far away.
Yeah, like I would say she falls out more when Signa comes, right? Like
but I think that she is one of the characters that we could see like really, really soon in like the gap periods.
Yeah, and also the funny thing is she's cheaper to pull for, and you'll probably actually end up using her more than Rondo. So.
She has an insane shelf life, is what I'm going to say. Like since I really pulled her until Signa, I've used her in every bloody sword fight.
Yeah. So I think she should be pretty up there, considering that I like I said, I think that we're probably going to get her relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely pulling for her. She's
so in that same like question I basically asked about Rondo is her version of that is yes, she will stay around that long.
Yeah. The mitigating factor is that she's gem pool, but it's not much of a mitigating factor when our gem pool is so big.
I think your gem pool is cheaper too, so I think she's worth a tier 2 at least.
Yeah, maybe she's just near the bottom, a little bit below average for tier 2, maybe something like that. And then I think Sazantos deserves the tier 1. Mostly because if you pull him, you could care less about not having Rondo. He has really good multi-hit and AoE. He pierces 2 elements, and his peak damage is not that far off from Elrica's as well.
I think
the comps that I've seen, like you basically like you're bringing all of these tier 1 warriors together. Like it's not even like one's replacing another tier 1 warrior. You're just bringing literally all 4 of these.
Yeah, they're literally 4.
Yeah. Well, it depends. There are some instances where you can just, do the Solon trick thing or something. But a lot of the time, even in those instances, it's because you need to do something else, like to an ad or something like that, or like where you're not piercing the ad, you're just using A2 or something like that. I think it's fairly reasonable to put him here because in my mind, it's hard to justify putting Elrica here and then saying that Sazantos is not in the same tier as her, right? Because Elrica can't break multi-target scenarios at all. She just can't.
Yeah,
She's
she
unable to do
can't.
that.
But
She also doesn't have AoE.
I mean, at the same time, Sazantos can't really break shit because like you can use its 8-hit once when you have 5 BP, and
Well,
then
he also has his ult,
yeah,
and
but
his
out.
you can still nuke when there's more than one target on the field, using his
Yeah,
single target. That's really useful.
yeah, and like sword, pierce, fire, and light. Well, I think the fire part is not very relevant right now.
Yeah.
But it might become more relevant if we have more of the same kind. Because like right now,
Yeah.
there's Edelgard and there's him. That's it.
That's
I
fine.
don't really have an opinion because like for me, he could be either tier 1 or 2.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah. Yeah. I
wherever
just
you
feel like
want to
it's
put him, I'm
yeah.
happy.
I just feel like it's hard to put Elrica in one and then put him in two because their pros and cons kind of balance each other out. Like she gives a little bit better support, but like that's only if you're not using Rinyuu, right? You can cap along with Odio-O, but then you also have Richard anyways. You don't even need that, so you're not even using
Right.
that skill. Like you're using her solely for DPS, and her DPS is not that much better than Sazantos. It's like, they're so
Yeah,
I
and Sazantos out actually has pretty good use case because like even if you use it on a break turn, it can deal up to like 300k. So
yeah
it's
yeah absolutely yeah. There are a lot of really good ways to use his ult in optimized clear, and I've seen every single time you do an optimized clear with him, he uses his ult in some pretty high value way, I think, from what I've seen. So
yeah.
that's pretty good.
So yeah, I'm quite happy with where he's placed, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
Okay.
Serenoa, why is he here?
Oh, just because he's a collab character. I mean, he's the goat. This guy's a fraud, and this guy's the
Yeah,
goat.
okay, cool. Whatever, he's free, so he's automatically top of the tier list.
This is true. Okay.
Signa.
Well, technically he's right here because you get it for free. Okay.
Sure, Signa.
Anyways, I think Signa
Tier 1.
is tier 1. She's
Tier 1.
so good.
Tier
She's
1.
like one of the most generally useful characters in the game.
Yep.
You can run her in literally any team.
Normalize giving me strong waifus.
She's really hot too.
Yeah.
She's like a tier 1 waifu as well.
Yeah, and she has the same banner structure as the Araune EX Elrica banner structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, paired with
So
Sazantos, right?
if you want Sazantos, if you put Sazantos in tier 1, that's even more of a reason to put Signa in tier 1 and vice versa, actually. So yeah.
Yep.
Tier 1.
Yeah.
Hello, Dream from the Future again. This was another one that accidentally got cut out earlier in the episode, so we didn't really cover it here when we were putting her, but basically, she has a sword, fire, light defense down, and she also has a full, all physical, all magical resistance down that can pair with Richard's sword down and stuff like that to extend and to fully cap out those active defense down buffs, which is very, very strong.
All right.
Sofia EX.
So, well, she's going along with Fiore EX, but if you hit Fiore EX early, you wouldn't keep going for
Yeah,
Sofia EX.
I think it's a big maybe because she does wind and nothing else.
Yeah, she and Levina are around the same, contribution level to wind. So Sofia EX, she has, I guess, slightly better peak because if you stack all those icons for her, her AoE becomes monstrous.
Yeah, 5 hit AoE and every hits cap. It's pretty
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
She doesn't have rest down, so you have to have Levina doing that.
Yep.
Or well, Wrath, whatever. But the
Wrath plus
point
Levina
is,
can do it. Yeah.
yeah, it's a big maybe.
Yeah.
Sonia.
Sonia.
T1.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Whoops. I think probably tier 2, but you're probably gonna get her anyway somehow.
I think
I think she's like top of tier 2 ish. 6 as AoE shield crack is so good. It's really hard to.
I was thinking T1 because Bargello, but then if you pull Bargello, would you consider dipping early?
I would never consider dipping earlier. Come on.
It's like
But
maybe kind
I would
of,
say,
but
yeah, like that's the thing, right? If you're ultra frugal,
yeah,
ultra economical free-to-play player, and you hit Bargello on like your first temple or your second temple or something, I feel like there's a good justification for just dipping at that point. It's
yeah,
not you don't really need Sonia, but like Bargello dupes are so high value. Sonia is such a good unit. She's like right around along the fringe of tier 1 and tier 2. Because
yeah,
honestly, 6x AoE shield crack can come in handy in a lot of fights, I would say, right?
yeah.
It's very, very different in nature than someone like, like Canary's 4x single target shield crack or, anyone else's shield crack for that matter.
Solon.
Mike
Interesting
Ah,
one, actually.
all right. I personally think Solon is tier 2 at minimum. There's no way that, in my mind, he's a skip for everyone.
Mm,
I think he's not a skip for light spenders or anything beyond light spender because I think he adds so much damage to spear and fire comps just by his 3x random target shield shaving effect, and
yep.
also he has that gimmick that you can use for fights that is not much of a gimmick because it's not just for show. It's also just
It's just broken.
it's just broken, so it's just good.
Yeah.
Um, So the skills we're talking about are so like let's just talk about fire comp for now. So in a fire comp, he can do this skill, which is a countdown nuke. It's just like, 4 turns later, if it's a break turn, it's gonna cast a fire AoE. You're gonna use this skill that's extensible that gives you 3x fire random target to shield shave fire and spear weak enemies, right? If it's a single target enemy who's weak to spear or fire, they're always gonna get 3 shields taken off. Priority, right?
Yep.
And he also is able to double the damage of your strongest nuker in any comp. But in this case, we're talking about fire comp. You can just double the damage of, I don't know, Strabo or Therion, right? Depending on how long the fight is. In a shorter fight, Therion would be your highest DPS. In a longer fight, it would be Strabo. And then
Yep.
he also caps your damage up for both spear and fire. And this comes in handy, obviously, for a fire comp. You can pair this along with Rinyuu's War Prayer, for example, or even if you're not, 20% is already 20%. In addition, it also caps your active magic up. So it's very economy efficient, and every one of his skills is extremely high powered. So I would say he adds more to a fire comp, and he additionally also adds enough to a spear comp. He's practically doing as much or more than Levina or like Sofia EX are doing individually for wind, right? Because 3 shields at the beginning of every turn, like continuously extensible, just by itself is already so high value. And not even talking about the rest of this kit. And then in terms of this ult, it can be used ubiquitously, especially in sword comps, for example, where you can do uh, 8x multi-hit with Sazantos, 9x multi-hit single target with Odio-O, 10x with Elrica. You can double
Yep.
that move's potency while adding 50,000 damage cap up. So it's just gonna ram this new cap. That's how, JP Wells like UMB, they're able to do 2.4 million or 2.7 million damage per turn and do it both break turns because of that gimmick that we talked about that involves Prim EX, right? So he's
Yep.
gonna on that break turn, he's gonna be able to feed himself 50% from a pet. Then she's gonna give him the remaining 50%, and he's gonna be able to ult 2 times in a row. And that unit that has doubled potency, increased cap is just gonna go ham and do a lot of damage. I also think he's very, very fun to use character. Obviously, um, definitely requires some planning and brain cells to use compared to a character like Rinyuu or Araune
Yeah, I
EX.
mean, countdown is already something that requires planning.
Yeah, so I think he's really cool. I would even put him a little bit higher, maybe here.
You think you
Yes.
can put him higher? Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
think
debatable.
this is fair. Um, Stray
Great
bow.
bow.
I think So Strabo is the character that was paired with Orsted, right? Orsted.
Yeah.
And I feel like Orsted, you also got a copy for free, right, in your first temple?
Yeah, it's basically the Niner style of being free.
Yeah, so like I feel like he's really, really niche. He ends up being the strongest fire DPS after like 6 or 9 turns, depending on your setup. But
Mm.
fire as a category is already pretty much the strongest element, and in the future it's going to be even stronger with Sword Pierce Fire. So like the value of just going for Strabo, a character that doesn't hit his peak until after 9 turns, I just feel like there's just I can't justify pulling for it, right?
Yeah, it's too long of a ramp up.
His gimmick is
too
that he
big of a
literally
niche.
gets stronger as more turns go on.
Yeah, we can look at that real quick.
He needs to cast to actually do something, like to
Yeah.
actually ramp himself up.
So
Yeah,
it is this skill right here. For each magic point, repeat this attack once up to 6 times. So this attack goes up to a 7x fire.
single
right?
target. Yeah.
Single target, yeah. Also, you look at this potency and it looks comically low. You're like, oh, how is this a nuke? But in reality, this is what happens, right? When you use abilities, you recover SP, you gain magic points, and the following effects happen according to the number of magic points you get. Remember that magic points do not get consumed. You just keep going up, right? So at 1 plus self 12% magic up, max 30% plus 2% per magic point. And then at 9 plus, you get self 20% elemental damage up. So after turn 9, he gets all the stuff capped up, right? By the time you get to this point in the fight in a fully spec'd out fire roster, if you had Darion in his place here, it would be over. Like the fight would be over, or close enough to be over that within the next few turns you'd be done anyways, and that's when he'd finally be powerful enough to do something. Probably not the best investment of your rubies.
Yep.
All right, so here's a character that also gets stronger over time, but we're gonna put her here.
Because you need her to get her pet smile.
No. That's just a bonus. But it's a very good bonus. And Tatlock, we can talk quickly about why her bonuses are way more important than this guy's bonuses. So all of this guy's bonuses are very selfish ones, right? Tatlock's, on the other hand, you would think that her bonuses would be selfish, but they're not. Extremely unselfish. Okay, so Tatlock gains vigor just by performing an action. In addition, some of her skills gain additional vigor for her, including her alt, which grants her 3 vigor, right? Vigor, once you stack to +3, you already have 15% defense and magic defense up. This is very easy to do, obviously. You just get it immediately. Already making your team very, very bulky, and also capping along with Rinyuu if you have her on her defensive prayer. And capping magic defense up with the likes of Leon, for example. 6 plus vigor, you also have 15% attack and magic up. So this can cap with someone like Bargello or Eltrix. Oh, and I can also stack with a character like Araune EX's passive as well, I think, right? I believe Araune EX gave a little bit to... Yeah, so while in back row, front row, 10% up. So it'll get you to 25%. And at 9 plus vigor, it's also going to give you HP regen and 5% SP regen. So honestly, you only need to get to 6 vigor, and getting to 6 vigor takes no time at all, right?
Yeah, but mostly I think turn 4 is the fastest realistic goal you're hitting.
Yeah, and I think that's fine because you want to start off getting defense and magic defense up anyways, and because you haven't broken the enemy yet, and by the time you're breaking the enemy, you already have this attacking passive up.
Yeah.
Right. So people say, oh, it takes, Tatlock is really good for long fights. Well, I mean, the fight doesn't even have to be that long for you to use her and get most of the benefit out of her passives.
She doesn't gain vigor when buffing, so her single move that buffs everyone's fizz and speed.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't actually gain vigor if you're using that skill. She only gains vigor when you're using
from attacking.
Skill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
that's not really
no
a big
deal,
problem.
Yeah, and then you can you can honestly also bring her in a lot of different fights because it turns out that they designed her kit so that you don't have to just bring her in wind or fan fights. You can also bring her for sword, spear, and axe fights if you really wanted to, because she can contribute to breaking there as well.
Yeah, she's not the greatest, but like just for a few turns to ramp up her passive, and then
And then
she's
just park her. Yeah.
Yeah, you can park her after, but like before then, she's not doing absolutely nothing. She's still contributing in some way. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. And also it allows you to get the quote unquote free version of her pets, if you so choose. Who's still the best stat stick in the game for Magic.
Yep.
Tressa
Yeah.
EX.
Hard skip.
GG.
Hard skip.
All right, this is one of contention.
My beloved.
I want to put her here.
What the
but
fuck?
I realized I want to put her here. I had a very long conversation with Grape about it. I feel like if you're going ultra meta, the first sacred banner you should be pulling on is just Leon. Because all of her support skills are just overrated at this point. She's basically just a glorified dark DPS that has other stuff that you don't really need, in my opinion. And because all the stuff that she does in terms of support, someone else does way better. For example, Odio-O does the guaranteed crit for everyone while doing way more other things. Hers is she has to cast a burial effect, and then remove the burial effect is just like, it's so inefficient for you to do that for one character. But we'll see that right here.
Okay, but assuming she comes out very, very soon, she makes a mean dark attacker.
Yeah, she is, one of your best dark attackers along with Nina Lana, right? But we already have Primrose, so she'd just be your, top three.
I think also realistically, there's like also the factor of poison you have to consider when using her. Because without poison, she doesn't have a passive.
Yeah, she actually just does not have a passive. Her 1-star and 3-star passives are literally just DOA useless if the enemy is immune to poison.
Yeah, but
doesn't even have
if poison is available, she is pretty
very
good
strong.
as a dark attacker.
She's very strong. Also, her dark AoE is 3x and combines with Primrose's to cap magic defense down, right? Her front row heal removes that burial effect, but also when it boosts max, you can heal everyone in your party. Not that we need it, obviously, because we'll have.
It also removes ailments.
Yeah, also removes ailments, which includes her burial effect. I just think this thing is pretty good too. It can be useful sometimes.
Yeah, she self-caps.
Yeah, self-cap.
M-Def down.
Yeah. But the thing is, I feel like because she's just used in dark DPS comps, and you're gonna bring Primrose as well. I also think Primrose is secretly very, very good because Primrose's ult allows you to nuke 2 turns in a row, way before Araune EX arrives and without the use of Alpha, right?
I think the really, really depressing thing about Xenia, you can sort of apply poison. Let's imagine that we're having a non-poison immune target. Like she can always miss the poison because none of it is guaranteed. So
I'm trying to think what poison appliers we have right now, and it's not very many, and none of them overlap with dark.
Yeah, and you end up having runs where you just get absolutely screwed by poison RNG because it happens.
Yeah, it's like well, I mean, at least her A4 is really, really good. So we haven't talked about that, but Xenia's A4 is the only one that inflicts magic defense down on break. And what this allows you to do is in the future, we're going to have an accessory from the Scholar Tower, 15% for 6 turns, 15% magic defense down for 6 turns. And then we're also going to have 15% to start with Laura if you want to use that. But in case you don't want to use Laura, you won't need to, because as long as you can break within 6 turns, you can just cap and extend it with Xenia.
Yep.
Yeah. It also is a really good stat stick, and it will inflict poison.
Yeah,
which is useful for
one
her.
100% inflicts poison
100%.
if not
Yeah.
immune. So yeah,
Yeah.
that gets rid of the RNG.
Yeah,
But do you really want to pull 5 copies?
And then again, like there are, quite a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of fights, right, where the enemy is just straight up immune to poison, including every single arena fight and EX arena fight. So you think about that as well. And I mean, you can mitigate this a little bit, just slapping a 30% dark rune on her. That means you're not slapping that 30% dark rune on Primrose, for example.
Prim.
The big brain, you keep an ad alive poisoned so that you can nuke the boss.
Oh, that is literally how I think Blossom fast clears are done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like pulling on a new unit for God knows how many rubies on a terrible banner just to do a very old piece of content faster.
Okay, I think we can compromise her cuteness. Okay, her lack of being good, her lack of being on a good banner. I think we can settle on tier 1, but at the bottom of it.
Wait, hold on. Here's my question. Wait, how fast do you even end up doing Blossom? Like, is it like a 2-turn or something in JP?
I've seen a few different Blossom clears with her.
I think it's a 2-turn. I'm not sure. I haven't checked Blossom clears in a while, because why would I?
Yeah, it's just who cares? I mean, we can already 4-turn Blossom in the end. So
that's the point. Who cares?
Yeah.
No one.
All right, I think so. This is our list, right? So here's what we would do with our pulse strat with this list. We would just ignore everything and just focus on this tier 1, because look at how many characters are already here. There are just too many. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Well, the bonus is that 2 sets of them share the same release.
Yes, that's the bonus. Yeah. So in reality, because Bargello, Sonia, Sazantos, Signa,
Elrica,
Elrica, yeah. If you pull intelligently, you can literally hit every single tier 1 character. If you start off with a stash of even like 3 or 4K rubies on average, if you never pull on any of these other units, you will have enough rubies to just hit everything. And also, if you had 6K right now to start, you probably just be able to hit all these, 95% of the time if you skip everything else. And if you get lucky, you'll know, because you'll be like, luck sacking a couple early on, and you'll be like, oh wow, my stash is looking great. At that point, maybe you can decide to pull on one of these banners.
Like also, EX. If you're like any amount of spender, it kind of just really opens up. Like,
if you're any kind of spender, tier 1 and tier 2 are just guaranteed for you with very light spending, probably, as long as you don't go too crazy on these other units.
Especially with, like we said previously, that if you are spending on the MTs, then every 4 laps you're guaranteeing whatever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rinyuu is just free. You just pick her up, GG. Right? It's just that easy.
One more thing we could add to this is which of these characters you recommend for spenders awakenings on.
Oh, right, yeah. Good idea. I would say Bargello and Sonia. You just pull out the wallet and just swipe.
Yeah.
It's just so high value. You can't find higher value there. I think another one would be, honestly, you really don't need it. You don't even need Sword A4s. If you already have Joshua A4, you can...
Well, I'm saying even just A1s. Like, which characters you recommend even that on?
Oh, A1s?
Oh.
Okay, so Signa wants 2 copies. All right.
U10.
Sazantos, U10. Sazantos wants 2 copies. He's a DPS. Odio-O wants 2 copies. He's DPS. Primrose, you want as many copies as you can get, because their A4 is one of the best. But 2 copies for U10 is nice, but you don't want to use the U10 yet. You just want to keep stacking copies. So you can go up to 6 copies for her and keep getting really good value. Rinyuu, you want only 1 copy. Richard, you want honestly 2 or 3 copies is fine. 2 copies for U10 I think is probably higher value than A1, and you definitely don't need anything beyond that. Fiore EX, you're probably okay at 1 copy, though her A4 is actually pretty good. We haven't really talked about it much, but we can look at that in a second. Elrica, if you don't have any copies of Joshua and you get lucky on her banner, you may as well just get closer to her A4 and then just trade for it later or something like that because it's only 5%
Yeah, I think
off.
she does enjoy her obviously A1 and then A2 I think is quite justifiable as well.
Yeah, I think it's
A3
good enough. Yeah,
well, A3 is 1000 HP, so
yeah.
you do what you
HP
want
is
with
HP.
that.
Yeah,
And then that means her A4 is that much more justifiable.
yep. And then
Especially if you
Araune,
don't have Joshua.
yeah, if you don't have Joshua at all, if you do have Joshua, it's just a little bit better and it's easier to spook him. Honestly, over a long period of time, you're probably gonna spook like one copy or something, right?
Yeah.
And also his rerun banner is going to be a lot cheaper to pull on, especially in EN probably compared to going for an A4. So like obviously during your pulls, if you end up getting 2 copies of Elrica, I wouldn't just keep going on her banner for A4. That's just not that's not the play.
Mm.
But if you're already really close, then you can prioritize trading for hers and just ignore Joshua's existence. hoping not to upset Dream too much about that. and
Yeah.
and then Araune EX, zero extra copies are needed. Catlock, honestly, I think A0 is fine, right?
If you have a Giga Whale A4.
Yeah, her A4 is honestly one of the best because if you're a Giga Whale, you can get 2 turns out of it every time it procs after turn 1. So now we're gonna look at Fiore EX and Catlock's A4s. Sonia A4 we already talked about 10%, a small chance of 10% dagger down per hit, I think. Hana EX is one of the best A4s as well, actually. So her A4 has the debuff extension +1, just like A2's.
Yep.
Canary has 15% dagger down on break.
Yep.
Eltrix is okay, and then
Solon's
is okay. Okay, yeah.
Then
Rondo's is
A1
actually
for
not bad.
Leon.
A1 for Leon, yeah. Rondo's is not bad. It has the +1 BP for the first 3 turns, just like Primrose EX's, but doesn't have the buff +1, so it's way worse
Yeah.
than hers.
It's mostly just for hyper speed clears, but
Yeah.
honestly, I think you don't really need it.
Yeah. You
I
can get
wouldn't
away
like
without.
actively go for it
Yeah, I wouldn't
unless
actively
you
go for it.
really know what you plan to do with it. I don't think it's
Yeah.
really worth going for.
Yeah, and then I don't think any of these other A4s are really worth pulling for.
Yeah,
What
Sofia
was
EX
Odio-S's
has
again?
question.
I actually don't remember.
Some SP regen shit, right?
Yeah, whatever.
Do you want to go show those 3 fangirls A4s real quick?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's go do that real quick.
Dances.
Right. So Fiore EX A4, Grape actually has it, so you can talk about it.
Yeah, so like the best use case I found for this thing is actually on Eltrix, because she's always on full HP with HP barrier, right? And that means with this equipped, she just has permanent 25% damage reduction on top of all other methods you have.
Is that just
And
a
then
flat 25? Same way
Yeah.
elemental resist works?
Flat.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but all damage. So yeah, that's pretty fun. I wouldn't say you should go for like A4 Fiore. It's like just not a great decision, honestly. Yeah. Tatlock. At start of turn, low chance to inflict 10% defense/M defense down. Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory why this is good.
Yep.
Like,
It can extend. You can extend Nicola's A4 and also cap along with Yanlong's A4 on break, and just continue this indefinitely. And especially if you pair it up, you pair this A4 with another A4 like that is debuff extension +1, like Hana EX's or A2's A4, then every single time it procs, it'll give you 2 turns. So it makes it easier.
And
to
if
extend.
you somehow go ham enough on the Signa Sazantos banner, it's just paired with Nicola is just 30%.
Yep, and then Signa's is also great because it gives 5%. Even though it gives 5%, right? It's just another 3 turns that you can use on top of Nicola's to make it easier for you to retain this passive debuff in long fights.
Yeah, don't underestimate pre-break damage. So none of these require breaking. So yeah,
Yep.
that's a lot of damage if you're a Giga Whale.
What was Hannah
Yeah.
EX's?
+1 debuff extension. So I mean, look, dancers just have powerful A4s,
Yeah.
they're so stacked.
All right. Any final thoughts on the list?
I would say that if you're gonna walk away with anything, just think about like why we would put these units on this list, right?
Yeah.
The thought process is really that it's not that, oh, these units are so OP that it's impossible to power creep them out of any given roster for any one piece of content. It's just that their kits are so powerful and also in a lot of cases very unique that they compress roles, they compress unit slots on your roster, they compress action economy, they provide a lot of power, and along with each other, they combine to give you maximum value for, a particular kind of roster clear. And also a lot of these are very ubiquitous in that you can use them for a wide variety of clears, even if it's not sword content.
All right. What about you, Grape? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. So looking at only the tier 1, I think because I don't think, well, at least I hope that warriors aren't going to be the only like strongest damage type forever. I think going for the very, very long run, you'd probably want to, like, if you somehow had to choose between the tier 1s, you would go for those that are generally useful, that have utility. So like Tatlock, Signa, Araune EX, Primrose EX. I think you can pretty much fit all of these into like 9 out of 10 fights. Like maybe they are not best in slot when you consider every character. Like if you somehow have a complete roster, but I doubt like most people would have a complete roster.
All right. Well, I think we covered it very, very extensively. So with all of that said, thank you guys for listening. Sorry that these were delayed. My throat is back to normal, as you can hear. It was gone for a good 3 weeks there. And then I had a week of me being lazy, so that delayed it a little bit more. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys look forward to more of it. We have a few more topics planned that we can put into the works for the next coming weeks. Prim, is there anything you would like to shout out?
Okay, if you guys are interested in EN speed clears, I'll be posting more and more of them as we get more content. Some of them are going to be budget clear focused, and some of them are going to be, dolphin or whale focused. And I'm going to try my best to get you guys both stable clears and cool looking fast speed clears.
And so examples of that is you said you have a Glossom whale clear right now, and then you also have a 3-star and 4-star only Tiki Cup race clear for the cup that is going on this week.
Yep. So I already
a little bit
started
of both
posting
already.
Yeah, I'm already starting to post these upcoming ones that we're gonna revisit. Right, we're gonna have Arena Cup races. I already posted Glossoms and Barkins, both 4 turns.
So yeah, he'll be linked in the comments or the description of both videos. So definitely go check that out. And what about you, Grape? You have anything you want to shout out to?
Right. I don't create content, but yeah, I'm sort of participating in this. So it'd be great if you guys could leave comments just saying like if there's something we didn't explain quite clear enough. Because like we are looking at the perspective of people who already have spent hours looking at this shit. So if it's not clear for you guys, let us know. We'll figure out something like some other method of explaining stuff better. And
also,
maybe,
Prim's
like,
a warrior. He will reply to you in the comments if I don't.
Yeah,
I will.
And
I will answer.
What else you guys wanna like listen to, like regarding COTC?
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me. My shout out is just to like the video and comment on it because it makes my serotonin juices go higher. And I hope you liked it. Hope you look forward to the next ones. Hopefully I will start posting content more regularly again. And we have new content coming, so I'll have a good motivation and reason to. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I want you guys to make sure you stay safe, stay cute. Much love. Booyah.